Howdy. Good morning and welcome to Punch List Management. I know it's probably not the coolest topic around at short course this year, but hopefully by the end of the 30-minute session, John and I will have made it cool for everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to our session. We're here to discuss an innovative way to manage punch lists on construction projects. But before we dive into it, I just kind of want to give an project overview of the project that kind of led to its creation, and that's the North Tarrant Express project. The North Tarrant Express project is a $2.5 billion CDA, or Comprehensive Development Agreement project, that follows the P3, or Public-Private Partnership project delivery model. As part of this agreement between TxDOT and a private developer, in this case the North Tarrant Express Mobility Partners, TxDOT has agreed to lease this section of roadway, and our private developer is there responsible for designing, constructing, operating, and maintaining the facility for the next 52 years. In exchange for that, the developer, for the finances put up front to design and construct the project, recoup their finances through the toll collection system. The NT project is part of a regional effort in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Metroplex area. We currently have several projects, design-build projects going on. The main purpose of this is to improve mobility along one of the most congested corridors in the state of Texas. I'm happy to announce that on October 4th, roughly a week and a half ago, the NTE reached substantial completion and opened roughly 9 months early. And we've been open for business since. It's one of the largest sections to date of the DFW managed lane system to open, and it joins the DFW connector and 2 segments of the LBJ Express project. This is a project overview of the NTE. It's a 13.5-mile corridor of new or reconstructed toll lanes, main lanes, auxiliary lanes, and frontage roads. It spans a 6-city corridor in the North Tarrant County. It's the western area, or western limits, start at the 35 West 820 interchange in Fort Worth, and the project extends all the way over to just east of the State Highway 121, State Highway 183 split in the Bedford-Euless area. This is a cross-sectional view of the project. Roughly have typically 12 lanes of roadway that have been constructed along the 820 section, what we call the west segment internally on the job. And then for our east segment of the job, State Highway 121, 183, we roughly have 14 miles of new roadway. We threw this slide in there to just kind of give a final configuration illustration of what the project looks like with the details of the managed lanes, entrance and exit points for what we call the TxPress lane system. Before I turn the presentation over to John to dive into the nuts and bolts of the punch list organizer, allow me to set some of the challenges that we faced on the North Tarrant Express project. First of all, the obvious. This is a huge project. We have a 13.5-mile corridor, roughly 200 lane miles of roadway, 75 bridges, and close to 2.5 million square feet of retaining wall construction. So for a punch list, one would say, how the heck are we going to manage this amount of construction? Add to that another challenge. Roughly 9 months ago, back in February, our developer, internally to our project staff, announced that their intention is to open this facility early. So one of the goals to get there, to reach substantial completion, is creation of the punch list. So how are we going to manage that system and meet that challenge of the developer to open the facility earlier? At this point, I'm going to turn it over to John so he can explain to you how we tackled that problem.
Okay, I'm going to start off with really touching base with our contract. The punch list is talked about in the CDA contract, and there's a couple of lines in here that are relevant to what we're talking about. So first of all, the punch list is the developer shall prepare and maintain the punch list. It's not TxDOT or the IE, it's the developer. It's their responsibility to do it and their responsibility to work it through. But it does say the independent engineer and TxDOT may, but are not obligated to, participate in the development of the punch list. And we both felt that's an obligation that we really wanted to participate in. That's an important part of wrapping up the project. So then the developer shall also deliver to Text.IE a true and complete copy of the punch list and each modification thereto as soon as prepared. That's kind of a hard one to really do without having some kind of real-time information sharing process. It sounds easy, but it's not done typically when you do spreadsheets and punch this on paper. So, and then as Blake just mentioned, it's a condition to service commencement. So it was a condition to be able to open up this project that we just did on October 4. So really, what do you do when it comes to a punch list? Well, of course, it's an on-site inspection. You go out and you identify things that are either incomplete or not quite right, and you make a list of stuff. And then somewhere along the line, that list needs to be transferred to people to get the work done, and then you work the list off. So the typical way that this has always been done on construction projects is you make a list, and what's better for making a list than an Excel spreadsheet? So this is sort of the traditional way of what you do with a punch list. You come up with a spreadsheet, and this is actually a pretty good spreadsheet. It lists out all kinds of attributes of locations and descriptions of details and who needs to do what kind of actions. And if you notice over on the right, the other part that kind of goes really well with a list is maybe a photograph. And so this is an Excel spreadsheet that then references some photo by photo number, and then you have to go to another document, like in this case a PDF file that is a number of pages with photo number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you know, it's rather elaborate. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's maybe a Word or PDF document. The two put together, put into an email, then sent off to someone else so they could take a look at it and say, yep, okay, we got the whole list. This is sort of the traditional way of doing a punch list. But you can imagine with the scale and scope of the project that Blake was just talking about, that would be a real tall order to try to manage this process for the amount of infrastructure that we need to build and to punch out. That's also a one point in time, and to be able to take it from generating the punch list to actually working those items down and ensuring that each and every one of those items is resolved is also another monumental task. So our solution, we call it the punch list organizer. It's basically use a smartphone or a tablet or a phablet or whatever web-enabled device you have to access a cloud-based server that is multi-user, so different parties on the project, each with their own access rights. Some people have access rights to read only. Other people have the ability to read and write. Other people have the ability to read, write, and accept. You know, you could put the QA team is allowed to accept items, whereas maybe the contractor is allowed to put items in there. So multi-user, simultaneous access. We all point to the same data. It's always live. Everybody points to the exact same single source of information, and there's no confusion over has an item been worked or not worked. And then last, it organizes text and photos to give you easy tracking from identification resolution, or from identification through resolution and final acceptance. Now, I'm going to apologize, this screen's a little small, so I'll try to talk you through it a little bit. There is, unfortunately, still a couple of lists involved with punch lists. So this starts off with a list of what we call our locations in the project of the North Tarrant Express with our 75 bridges and 270 or so MSE walls and another 200 roadway segments. We had to take it and break it down into bite-sized pieces to be able to manage creating a punch list for each one. So this is a list of the locations, and it's just a small part of the locations. On the left side are, sorry, I've got to bend down to be able to read over here. These are all roadway elements, but basically, I guess the key stuff here is in the middle we have an attribute about whether or not we've performed a punch list on each one of these locations or not, and then on the right we have some attributes over exactly how many items were identified at each one of those locations. How many items in total, how many are open, how many are closed by the contractor, indicating the work has been done and waiting QA to be able to accept it, and how many we call level 2 closed, which means QA has gone through and checked the work and truly accepted it. Moving down one level from sort of looking at the whole project as a whole and all the locations on it, you could then start working your way down to an individual location, such as a bridge or one roadway element. And then this is a list of the details for that one roadway element. In this case, you can see 12 details on the screen. There's some pertinent information about specific text about the details of each one of these items, the date it was created, the date it's resolved, resolution details. And of course, those resolution details come as the work is performed. So this is a detail screen drilling down one more level. This is the details of an individual punch list item. On the top, you could see that the date it was created. This one was created in July 18. And who created it? Christina Salazar. Again, because of the user level permissions in the database, we know the person who did it. We know the date it was created. They took a photograph and they uploaded it. The photo is actually stored in kind of a neat way. Whenever you take a photograph out on site, it goes up to the web server as a high resolution image, and then the web server throws down in a hurry a thumbnail image. And generally, we work with the thumbnail images day in and day out on all of these screens. And if there's ever a need to get to the high resolution image because you can't really see the detail and enough granularity with a thumbnail, you just click on the button that says right over here, download image, and then you have access to the high res. Okay? Down at the bottom, I'll point out a couple things. There's some updates down in here. What this shows is that on September 18, this item was actually accepted in what we call level 1 close, which is that QC closed kind of item where the contractor's done the work, they're attesting that the work has been performed. And then a couple days later, on July 22nd, this item was accepted, and it says accepted by a different person, Andrew Velasquez. He indicated that it was changed to level 2 closed. He went in here into the resolve details, indicated the work was done, and even indicated a name of somebody else who also inspected the area. So we have a couple of names of people, the dates that these actions were performed, a lot of good detail indicating how this punch list item has been identified initially and then ultimately brought to resolution. The other thing that's kind of neat is because there's been a lot of talk about geotagging this morning and being able to reference where you are with equipment and stuff. Well, everybody's really walking around with their own geotagging items, which is your smartphones. Every time you take a picture, you're putting geotag information on that photograph. Those attributes are part of the database. They're stored in there. You click show on map, and then it drops you right on a map as to where that is. So in the end, what you wind up with is a little bit of text indicating what the punch list item is. You get a photograph so you could see what the item is. You even have a geotag location of where the item is. And so it's very clear when you put all that stuff together, you know who put it in there. So if you can't figure it out from there, you could just call the guy who put it in there. You know all these details, and it's all very transparent to everybody who works on the project. So this is kind of the simplicity of what these input screens look like. Now the key to making all this work is it has to be easy to do, right? Now you all may not know, but today was intended to be a little bit interactive. Okay, so study the screen for a moment because I'm going to ask you to pull out your smartphone here in a minute and see if you want to try putting something into a punch list organizer we created for the short course. Okay, so basically what you do is you get a screen that looks like that. All you really have to do is hit select here. You take a picture of whatever is your punch list item, and there's two text boxes to fill out. One over here that's called detailed location, which basically just allows you to give a little context. If you're at a bridge, you might say I'm at abutment number 1, and then the details might be, hey, there's a crack in a corner or something like that. It's as easy as texting, and so really the only prerequisites to make this thing work is you need to have some kind of a device that could get to the internet live, and you need to have some very basic texting capability. Okay, so. There are some people in construction, believe it or not, that still don't do that, and we understand that. But there's more and more folks that have texting capability, and they're able to type with their fingers. So if you're interested and you're inclined, and I'd encourage you to give this a shot as we're doing this presentation. Go ahead to howdy.cmmanager.net. Okay, and this thing's up live. So just take whatever device you have a tablet or a phone, or if you're inclined, try logging into howdy.cmmanager.net. It's just going to ask you for one other question. It's going to say, give you a username. And so for that, you just put in a username without spaces. You could use your own name. You could use whatever name you want to make up. There's no permissions on this one. And then you get the screen we just looked at. Looks something like that. So to I guess, show you guys also how simple and easy this is, we have a little video here that is actually the punch list organizer in use out at the project site. And I have a high-res version, but I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and go with this one, and we'll see if we get it to work.
Good morning. Today we're here demonstrating how to add punch list items to the organizer website using the tablet. Today we're here at this MSC wall, and we've already identified an issue, which is touch-up paint being needed along the bottom of the wall due to riprap placement. So what we'll do is we'll go into the tablet where we've already identified the location. We'll select the photo function in order to take the picture using the camera. We will zoom into the area, get a good shot. That photo then goes up to the cloud, comes back as a thumbnail form, and then we'll identify the detailed location and the specifics of the item. So under detailed location, I'll put MSC. I'll go ahead and put an MSC wall 60 throughout. And I'll go under details and I'll add in touch-up paint. Insert the item, and now it has been officially added to the punch list.
So it's as easy as that. So the punch list organizer, you do need to have a little bit of texting ability, you know, but again, that's not hard to find these days. So basically, we repeat that over and over again whenever you find a punch list item. It's pretty easy. It actually technically works without a photograph, but the photograph just adds additional context. It works without a geotag photograph, but again, the geotagging adds additional context. Each one of those things add additional value to it. So if you have a regular smartphone, you're geotagging your photos anyway. So it works really well. All right, now once all this stuff is put into the database, what can we do with it? Well, for one thing, we could create some reports. You know, there still are, you know, a number of folks that maybe not so technology enabled out on site, and they might not want to use a tablet as their regular day-to-day tool. So once information is put into the database, we could create a report and create reports with, this one shows like a listing of some of the items. Again, some of the pertinent information on the left, the dates, the names, the details, and some photographs. In this case, on the right-hand side, these items have been resolved, so there's some resolution dates and details associated with it. There's even some QR readers for folks who still want to be able to use their smartphone and go right to one of those items. But for instance, early on in the process, these aren't resolved, so you could take a punch list and you could give it to a crew, and you print out this piece of paper and you hand it out to them, and they know what to do. They could go find these things, and they could scribble their notes on crayon or whatever on the right-hand side and hand it back to somebody in the office to go update the database. It doesn't have to be done in the field. It could be done at a desktop. It could be done anywhere. This is also useful for checking. You know, we could go back and follow up with these things and ensure that we're satisfied that these items are adequately addressed. And if we want to go back and get to one of those items individually, point one of those QR readers to these items, and it takes you right to that element right in the database without having to navigate there. So that's a pretty cool tool. And of course, when all these items are in the database, one of the key things we want to do is track statistics and ensure that we're going to finish our project on time. And so what I have on the screen here are some of our weekly reporting that we had at our regular Friday staff meetings. And so week by week throughout this year, we've been looking at the metrics associated with generation of the punch list. First of all, this wheel on the right, locations walked. We have 4 statuses for a location. A location is either not started, that means we haven't gone out and done any punch list inspection yet. In progress, and in progress is one that there was a lot of roadway elements, for instance, that were not ready to be punched out some months ago. because there are still final activities to be done. There is still final paving and striping and signs and lights and stuff like that that weren't happening until the last week. But we can't wait and do 200 lane miles in the last week. So we had to go out and do some kind of early preliminary walks on these to try to punch out as much as we could, with full knowledge that we're going to go back and do one last walkthrough when those final elements are in place. So that was our status for that. We called it in progress. Then there's created and then closed. And where we are today, or about a week ago, is that basically about half of our locations have been closed out, but everything's, at least the punch list has been created, which is the requirement for substantial completion. On the left side is some metrics about the punch list items themselves. There's about 9,500, somewhere listed up in those small numbers, of punch list items on our project. 3/4 of those have been level 2 accepted. In other words, they've been worked and they've been accepted by the QA department. There's a small section in yellow of level 1 closed, which means it's done by QC, it needs to be checked by QA. Easy to give those folks a report. They know what to go out and check. And then there's about 1/4 of them that still have work to be done. And then down here, now we can start breaking it out by element type. Here's a couple of wheels that indicate, MSE walls are in really good shape. Roadway and bridges are a little further behind. We have a little bit more work to do. And then some other stats. Again, we started doing the punch lists at the beginning of the year. This is the beginning of the year on this end. This is about present time down on that side. And the graph are really the number of punch list items generated week by week. And so starting on the left-hand side, you can see for the first quarter of the year, we had kind of low numbers. And this is in the order of maybe 50 punch list items a week, something like that, from various inspections. So we go out and do a punch list inspection on completed elements or near completed elements and capture roughly 50 a week, and we kind of knew where we were. As we really got into gear, we got things more closed and ready for substantial completion. There was a real dramatic uptick in the amount of punch list items generated week by week. We were doing on the project as many as 3 inspections in the morning and 3 inspections in the afternoon every day. So there were 3 crews doing inspections at multiple places. Again, the beauty of this is simultaneous access to the same database. So we were getting upwards of almost 600 items per week. And so there's the cumulative over time. And then as you get to the end of the job, of course, it fell off again. And then last, this is punch list locations. And again, this is the metric we were watching to ensure that we got to substantial completion 9 months early, which was our project, which was our goal. To do that, we had to get this yellow bar, which is, that is our indicator of created punch lists. In other words, we all agree that we've done the full punch list in those locations. No more bites at the apple, if you will. The punch list is created. And we had to have all the punch lists created by the close of, by substantial completion. So we were tracking this and a little bit nervous because we still had a ways to go towards the end. But in the reality, there's a big spike there at the end where we did probably over that week almost 130 that we closed out. And the real reason for that is those are all those roadway elements that we had been inspecting as we were going, but we weren't quite satisfied that we could say the punch list is completed. We wanted one more opportunity to go back and look at it after the final elements were in place. So those last inspections were pretty quick, they're pretty easy, and we actually were able to do them very expediently. So I guess to kind of wrap things up from my perspective, this cloud-based punch list tool works in a whole lot of different ways. One, it keeps the information incredibly organized. Again, a database is the right type of tool for that. It's auditable and accountable. It is transparent. Basically, it gives access all the way from the project levels for management who want to get an idea of the metrics on the project as a whole, down to individual locations, or you could drill down into the individual items themselves. So it allows a lot of transparency and viewing exactly the status of any given item. It is user-friendly. I hope you guys agree by practicing a little bit. We'll see here in a minute how well that worked. But I think it's easy to do. It's excellent for tracking and monitoring progress to get to that goal, to be able to get there on time, which was one of our main things. It's collaborative, so everybody does a little bit of work and you wind up with a great collection of stuff. Of course, it uses real-time data, and probably one of the most important attributes of this is it really gives you very good communication for all parties. And what I mean by that is, traditionally what happens with a punch list is somebody scribbles something down on a piece of paper and with a little luck, that information gets passed to the right person to get the work done. And sometimes when they're looking at that, they still don't even understand what it is, either where it is or what was he thinking. I don't know what it is. I guess it must be done. Follow it up and throw it away. You know, that kind of thing it just is not efficient. It's not a good way to go. This gives you ample ways to understand the information, where it is, and what to do about it. So I think it's again an excellent tool. And with that, Blake, back to you, sir.
Thank you, John. I've been kind of watching people place stuff into the tool that we developed for today, and it looks like it's working really well. I think everyone's catching on how simple and effective this tool can be. Just real quick, right here at the end, just want to go through some key points on TxDOT's perspective of the system. A lot of the benefits that John's already discussed, we're in total agreement with. It's been a great tool. It's been a very innovative tool. You know, as part of design build and the P3 process, we have flexibility to innovate, and I believe that through that we were able to take a complex task, a tedious task like punch list management on a mega project like this, and make it simple and effective. And I think by doing that, we assisted in reaching those goals of opening the facility earlier. And another way to look at it is it reduces the impact for the traveling public because it's very efficient, it's very organized. We don't have a lot of conflicts with the information that's being presented in the system versus some of the older methods of creating a punch list. Another key point is quality and value. We're always wanting to strive to make sure that the projects that we put out there, the end result has the best value we can give to the public. And by setting up the punch list organizer tool, that gave us a chance in our limited role that we play, TxDOT plays on design build projects, to really dive in and say, we're going to be active with the punch list. We want to make sure we're giving a quality project to the traveling public. So let's get involved. Let's identify any defects here at the final end of the job and have that system, that accountable system. Third point would be transparency. The data is real time. It's always there, viewable for all stakeholders. By doing that, it's real quick to look at trends, to look at the data, see where we're having our most common issues on the punch list. We have the summary function to track the progress and the performance. And also one of the highlighted things that were added recently was the contested items function for the auditing purposes that we do. And lastly, it's the application potential. We use this for punch lists on this construction project, and I believe that it has value on other construction projects for the state. But in looking outside of that bubble, where else in our operation, day-to-day operations, could a tool like this help our jobs and make them more efficient and transparent? And I know I included one example would be maintenance and on our total maintenance contracts and helping to identify issues. And I encourage managers, supervisors that are in their audience today to look at this tool and take it into consideration for those operations at TxDOT. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Blake, maybe before we go to questions, we can see how we did on the punch list organizer. Let me see if I can pull it up on here. If we have just a moment, I think I could. Let's see if I could just figure out how to get this thing to refresh. We'll see if anybody. Oh man, I need to log in. Okay, my name today is. We'll just log in here. Oh, come on. Use my old one? That's why I have Jeremy. Okay. Wow. This is a list of what you guys did just now. Holy moly, there's more than I figured you guys do. All right, there are 27 items in here of punch list items, and all for a location short course. So that's the beauty of collaborative work, right? We will delete this stuff at some point, so don't worry, we're not going to keep it forever. But I guess let's see at random. Somebody give me a number. 18. I heard 18. Need to wake up. Uh-oh. Who did that? There you go. So somebody named Aggie01 today. So put in need to wake up. Spec indicates not to sleep. Yes, this is probably something we shouldn't be doing. We'll show it on a map. Maybe see where this is with a little luck. See if your geotagging's working. And well, it should. It's only as good as Google Earth and your geotagging capability. Generally, there's a little pin drops on here, you know, that tells you where the heck you are. But it may not have. Let's see. We'll try download image. Again, this is where you could get the high-res image, just in case you need to see who that is. You know, Mr. Brodeen. That looks kind of familiar. So anyway, you guys got the idea. This is it's a pretty cool tool. It's very easy to collect this kind of stuff. Collaborative, user levels, and it's as easy as you guys just tried it out here. So should we dare try another one before we get the questions? I don't know.
Which one was it?
A number? 26?
I like number 19.
19? All right, I'll go to 19. Beat Bama. No, okay, well, here's one that just says beat Bama when. Again, it doesn't need to have the photograph. The photograph adds context. But you know, there you go. So it works. It works. It worked live here, and it's worked 9,500 times on the North Tarrant Express, and you know, it's proven itself. It's working really well.